Okay, welcome back, design enthusiasts, and welcome back to a conversation about design, the official podcast here at Experience House. As you know, I'm Amit Patel. I'm the creative director here and your host of this podcast. And today I'm super excited to have this conversation with Ivy Malik, who is a business coach and much more than that, who specializes in empowering creative professionals to confidently close high value deals, high paying clients, and we're just fascinating to find out more about what she's been up to as well. So, Ivy, thank you so much for joining and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat and just hang out and talk about all things that come up in business.
Perfect. So, Ivy, I think it would be really good. I'm sure there's a lot more to add to the kind of what I've just said, but can you just tell us a little bit more about what you do at the moment?
Whenever my friends ask me what it is that you do, I literally just say, well, I help creators make more money because the bottom line is basically making more money. But the pathway to that is so much more complex because people have terrible relationships with money. They don't know how to communicate. All they want to do is just do what they love. And I enable that. I help them have their passionate businesses that they're so passionate about so that they can continue doing what they love. And that's the essence of it all. And one of the biggest things that people don't understand is that you have to sell while doing so. And they hate that. So I'm on a mission to kind of transition people's mindset around sales and money so that they can really enjoy the whole process of business, not just that delivery aspect to the client.
Nice. And Tess, just tell us a little bit more. I know obviously we've known each other for a couple of years now, and I know you mentioned you had a restaurant just nearby to here. So I'd love to kind of just understand how you transitioned from, being a restaurant owner to what you're doing now.
So I had a restaurant on Brick Lane for
Mhm.
about 10 years, and it was a
Wow.
Swedish restaurant. And I told myself that no one's ever going to push me out of my restaurant. I'm like, okay, when I sell or when I give it up or whatever I do, I want to do it at its peak and I want to make sure I'm not pushed out. So as business goes, you have many different peaks and troughs. And one of my most incredible peaks, I'm like, okay, I'm pregnant. I don't want to have a child in hospitality, so I'm going to sell. So I sold the premises. I had a couple of premises at that time, and after I did that, there was this huge void. I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? And my friends are the ones who actually put me in the direction that I was at, but
Yeah.
or that I'm in right now. And they literally just said to me, "Well, you should do what you do with us." I'm like, "What do I do with you?" Now, most of my friends are creatives. They're designers, they're photographers, filmmakers. They're literally everything that I didn't get to do when I was younger
Hmm.
because my father told me to get a real degree, which then I did, and I got a real job, and then I started my own
Right.
business. So I'd surrounded myself with all these creative friends who I was seeing just getting undervalued and people were taking advantage of them. So I would go into protection mode and help them. So
Hmm.
when they said to me, you should do what you did with us or what you were doing with us, I kind of thought like, what is that? And then I found out there was something called coaching. I'm like, oh, I've been doing this all this time and I
Yeah.
didn't even know it. And you can get paid for this? This is so easy. And it's so much fun. So that's how I kind of started. I had a huge period where I was really um, fighting the word coach because I'm like, I'm not a coach. I'm a business person who has a lot of experience and skills,
Hmm.
but do I need a certification, etc. So I had a whole battle with myself. I'm like, no, my certification is the 10 years of business that I have. That's my
Yes.
that's my experience that I bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of our training here at Experience House, it's this term trusted advisor comes in a lot of time, and it seems like what you've been doing with your friends at that time is it was being a trusted advisor, and you have this business behind you that's kind of backing up why and what you're saying as well. So as you moved into coaching, what did you start with? Like, what was the first thing? Did you start kind of putting in meetups? Did you have little workshops? What did you start with?
So it's interesting. I had a really successful business to begin with, and I'm like, well, I've done this, I can do anything. My attitude is pretty much I can do anything at any point. And then I struggled because I'm like, whoa, it's not the same thing. I've had a bricks and mortar and now I'm entering a digital world. I've had people who were doing marketing for me, and word of mouth was like as a restaurant, that is one of the most crucial aspects. And then, you're visible, so people talk about you, people blog about you, you become popular. It was really easy as a bricks and mortar. But in the digital world, I'm like, I'm nobody. I don't exist. I don't how do I do all this marketing? So I had a huge learning curve. I had to relearn how to do business, and I expected. I'm like, oh, I know all these things and it will just happen. And it didn't. And so that was a bit of a wake up call for me. I'm like, oh, I need to relearn a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so I set off and just relearning. I forgot the question. I feel like I'm off on a tangent. What was the
No,
question?
it's absolutely fine. The question I have is like when you first started getting into coaching, what was the first offer? So obviously you've been
Yes.
doing
Oh,
stuff with your
yeah.
friends, and so just kind of picking up on like, yeah, what did you start with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't know. I didn't know what to offer because I'm like, well, I'll help you with your business. It was
Okay.
just incredibly broad. I I could literally help anyone and everyone. I started off with just working with other people in hospitality. Did you want to open up your own restaurants? And then I'm like, okay, I can also help, people like my friends who are designers. And then it was only when I was in the world of relearning how to do marketing, I'm like, oh, I think I need to niche. And then I started niching. And then
Okay.
once I started niching, I'm like, okay, now I know what to say. Now I know
Yeah.
how to do it. And then
Yeah.
it's every year or every month, I'm like, oh, I can do this better. I can do this better. So I started extremely broad, doing anything and everything, saying yes to anyone,
Hmm.
and then narrowing that down slowly. And
Okay.
then the offer became it went from business coaching, which is pretty much everything, to sales. So focusing on sales for designers. When I speak to people, I always speak to designers, but I obviously service the whole creative field as long as they have a
Okay.
spouse.
Okay. And in
Yeah.
terms of yeah, like could you just give us an example, like some of the kind of the what kind of roles are people in, or what kind of businesses are in the creative sphere are people kind of running?
So anything from a solopreneur to a small agency, normally no more than 14, 15 people. I really
Hmm.
like taking people from there's so many incredible creatives and designers out there who have never hit six figures and they've been in business for 10 years. So I love taking them to breach the barrier of six figures. That's like the first part. And then the second is the agencies who are hand to mouth. They're like mid six figures, and then
Yeah.
just growing them to hit towards their first million. So
Okay.
those are the kind of two factions that I work at. I don't love scaling. There are people out there who are really good at scaling, but that becomes about
Mm.
automations and processes. It becomes
Yeah.
less about your mindset and
Yeah.
I love working with the mind and shifting the mindset around business and sales and money.
Yeah.
They've already done that at the higher levels. Then it becomes more about communication, growth, automation, processes, and managing people.
Nice. I
Yeah.
think what I'd love to do explore for a couple of minutes, because I think I think there are a lot of people out there that need the help. They may not know they need the help. There are a lot of people that like yourselves who are kind of have the skill set, have the knowledge to kind of really help as well. But we often don't get a chance to really demystify or kind of really show the value in what you are bringing to the table. So I think what would be really cool is could you explain a little bit like what does your typical kind of day look like? If you have a typical day, or like what is a day like if who are you helping, who are you speaking to, how much time is spent on new business and new business development? I would love to know like what is a typical day in the life of Ivy.
So I have two typical days. One is client heavy and one is not client heavy. So
Okay.
I bunch up all my client heavy hours on 2 days of the week. So Tuesday and Wednesday are my client days. Today is my business day, which means I do things for for my business. I'm on podcasts, I'm creating content. A typical day where maybe there's a bit of a mix. I wake up in the morning, I check my phone. I'm terrible. Like I check my phone, I check in with my clients first. So I have a group of I do a lot of coaching in groups because that's the most scalable way for me to do this. But I have small groups really involved and they have my WhatsApp.
Mhm.
So the first thing I do is I check in and see, do my clients need me? Which is terrible but also good at the same
Mhm.
time. I respond in bed to my clients, and my husband then goes, "Well, aren't you going to help me with our son?" So then we do. morning routine,
Yeah.
get family ready. And then if I've got coaching calls, which I don't have more than 3 calls a day ever,
Hmm.
I have coaching calls, I need to be really focused during that time because I'm supporting them, I'm helping them, and I'm holding a lot of memory of their businesses and their clients in my mind. So I have my working sheet where I will glance right before the
Hmm.
meeting to make sure that I know who I'm talking with, which I normally don't need, but sometimes there's
Yeah.
some nuances that we need to get into. I would check in on socials. I'm very social heavy. That's my marketing
Hmm.
platform. Instagram and LinkedIn. I communicate and chat to people in the DMs all the time.
Right.
I create content on stories. I tell people what I'm doing on stories on Instagram. It's one of my main platforms. And I like to create content on the day. So it's really responsive to what people are talking to me in the DMs and they're asking questions, and I will create the content of the day, dish that
Mm.
out into LinkedIn. I know each platform should have its own strategy. I don't have time for that. I'll
Mm.
put the same content out on LinkedIn or Instagram, TikTok, and then I will eat at some point. I will definitely eat at some point, go to the loo, drink some water. Sometimes, if I'm really heavy diet, my husband, he will bring me food, and I'm like, oh, shoot, I forgot. So I'm not a great example because I love my
Yeah.
work and I just get
Yeah.
completely immersed into it. And then it's pick up the child time and have family time. And then I'll check in
Nice.
on WhatsApp again to make sure I'm
Yeah.
supported. It seems like a really boring day, but that is my day.
No, no, I don't think it seems
Spreadsheet.
boring at all. I think it seems like for a lot of people in the kind of the creative space, it seems like a pretty typical day. And I think there's multiple avenues that you need to kind of be aware of, especially if you're looking for new business and trying to generate new leads as well. There's also, shouting about what you're doing and sharing about what you're doing as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, just to kind of pick up on that point, it seems like you're doing a lot of content generation. Are you how are you kind of looking to kind of scale that and automate that, or what help do you have with that?
Oh, it's, content has been the highest performing lead generator for me.
Hmm.
So it's really, really important. And every time I've tried to outsource it, it has not worked.
Right.
So I, and I don't mean outsource the ideas, I mean parts of it. I don't like the design when other people do it. I'm not a great designer, but I know what I like and I know
Yeah.
what works for me. And also, I don't necessarily design for aesthetics. I design for the platform so that things are visible.
Yeah.
So there's always an argument. And with the design, I'm like, no, I know this looks really good. I love all this negative space, but this is not going to be visible on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I find it really difficult to find people who are as fast as
Mm.
I am. And I'm not the fastest person in business by all
Yeah.
means, but
Yeah.
when I compare my speed to other most people, I'm in the upper quadrant.
Mm.
If I want to launch a program new, if you and I start talking about something, I'm like,
Mm.
oh, this is a great idea. I can launch it tomorrow.
Mm.
Most people will be like, oh, let's plan this.
Yeah.
And it'll be like a month. But I'm like,
Yeah.
no, we'll launch it. I don't mind making the mistakes. I don't mind doing it
Yeah.
dirty. I don't mind failing. I don't mind
Yeah.
if nobody buys, but at least I did it. And then
Yes.
I can move faster in my business. And I find that when I outsource content, it just is so slow. I'm like, no, that idea that I had, I've already evolved
Mm.
since like 3 weeks ago that we talked about it. So I don't like batch creating. I'm trying it now again. I try it all the time, but I like to be responsive to the moment and the times. And maybe there's something spiritual
Mm.
in that I'm like, there's an energy that comes with that. But beyond that, there is the menial task that I don't need to do. So I have people scheduling. I
Mm.
have people, all the things that are not creative.
Yeah.
That's outsourced, except for editing. Editing, I'm also outsourcing because I just don't have the time for it.
Got it.
And
Got it. Got
case in point, I have a podcast
it. Hmm.
which I have recorded. I have done the thing. I'm like, okay, I'm going to start it. And I started recording podcast, but I don't have time to edit it.
Yeah.
I have not found an editor who has been able to deliver in the time scale that I want. I'm like, oh, I just want faster and
Yeah.
more responsive.
Yeah.
Please don't pitch me editing services if you watch this. I have found someone.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I think there's a huge element of like not trying to over engineer, get stuff out,
Yeah.
be reactive, proactive at the same time. I really like that. So now that that's a great lesson that I think a lot of people will take value from. What challenges do you see most of the creatives that you're working with facing at the moment in terms of their businesses?
Perfectionism, that's a
Hmm.
huge one. It The perfectionism is keeping them from marketing, putting themselves out there, completing work on time. I see that as well, not necessarily with my clients, but in the conversations I'm having in the DMs. They don't know when to stop, they over deliver. So
Right.
perfectionism is really slowing a lot of people down. So I work on that part fair bit with my clients. Decision making, so
Hmm.
overthinking. A lot of creatives are overthinkers, hand in hand with the perfectionism. Oh, what if we do it this way? Is this the right way? Is this the only way? And it
Hmm.
seldom is. There's so many. I don't know where to stop or begin. But those two are really, really high on the list. I'm trying to think what else is holding them back. Their relationship with money. They don't want
Okay.
to sell. The fear of rejection.
Yeah.
The rejection, they take it on as if it is a rejection of their creativity, but it isn't.
Hmm.
It's just
Hmm.
it's
It's
just
business. It's a
it's just
business. Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult for most creatives to separate the business from themselves.
Hmm.
So pricing becomes a problem. I think pricing is one of the easiest things to do.
Hmm.
And I see people getting stuck. They're like, oh, I don't know what to price this for. And then they don't know. Then they don't have control over it. They don't know
Hmm.
how to communicate it. And then the spiral. And then suddenly they're like, oh, I've done it for half the price than I would have wanted to. I'm like, you knew what you wanted. And
Yeah.
yet you did it for half the price. Because
Yeah.
if you didn't know, you wouldn't say that it was for half the price that I wanted to do it. You knew.
Yeah.
Just say it. So then we're going to confidence. They don't have the confidence to actually know what to do and how to do it. And they may be confident intrinsically, but then they're bashed because the external environment is telling them otherwise. And they're listening to that more than they're listening to themselves. And if they would only
Right.
listen to
Right.
themselves, they
Yeah.
would probably be in a better position. So placing more
Yeah.
value in other people's opinions than their own.
Right.
Sorry, that was
So
a
it
lot.
seems just from that, like it's not about their kind of technical skill or their kind of flair for design or their creativity. It seems like there's just a bunch of support that you are able to help them with some of those kind of, I don't like to use the word softer skills, but they're almost like essential skills for a business owner.
It's so interesting you said soft skills because I was literally thinking about that today. I'm like, I really hate that it was in the shower. I'm
Yeah.
like, I hate the word soft skills. It's not soft skills. These are the
Mm.
most powerful skills you can have in business. And
Yeah.
people think it's just the branding around soft skills is all off. It
Yeah.
needs to be rebranded
Yeah.
completely into
It's
power
too
skills.
hardwired into like academia and all
Yeah.
types of kind of learning pedagogies. I think it's too high to me. Again, like you said, business skills. They're powerful business skills. To me, they're essential skills that they need to be developing very early on because then it helps them in so many areas of their work as well. And it could be just down to kind of active listening, or it could come down to how do you give constructive feedback, and that's going to have to happen as you scale a business, for example, as well. No, I think that's. I mean, there's some super fascinating things there. So now, just jumping back to your offer. So now you've kind of talked about kind of some of the challenges that the creatives are facing. Tell us a little bit about like your offer here. So is it workshops? Do people? You mentioned programs as well. So yeah, just would love to know kind of like what you offer to people in terms of those kind of like, formats.
Yeah, so there are three formats. The first is just one-to-one coaching if you're
Hmm.
needing support, and I take about 4 clients a year. I get really involved, and it's an intense
Hmm.
relationship in a good way. Then I have groups. and in my group, we hit sales and marketing, depending on which tier you're in. It's called Flight Club. I love it. It's probably, is it my favorite? It probably is my favorite. I get a lot of beautiful souls in there who all have similar values. I think one of the beautiful things about social media is you can present your values and you can show who you are, and then you attract the same.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what I do. I attract really wonderful people who are passionate about the planet, they're passionate about their work, and they're not money hungry. I'm not here for the money hungry people. I'm here for people who want to make changes in the world. So that's the program. And then the third way is by speaking. So I do talks in other companies, on stages and on Zooms to just support either the agenda of the company or just to spread the word about how wonderful sales is.
Yeah, yeah. And um, the Flight Club, just tell us a little bit more about. I love the name. I
Yeah.
love the name Flight Club. Tell us a little bit more about like what is kind of a program like Flight Club look like?
Yeah. So Flight Club is 6 months, but you can be in there forever. It primarily started as sales training. So most people don't get the opportunity to sell as much as they need to in order to be good at sales. So every week we meet and actually practice the different skills that are needed in sales, including all the soft skills, like all the different non-verbal communication alongside the psychology of selling, how to do objection handling, how to talk about price, all of these things. You actually get to practice and train. And beyond that, the tier up expands into lead generation as well. So where you get clear on who you are, who you're for, and how to actually attract clients to you. So you don't have to do cold outreach. Most people don't like that.
Yeah.
And just become magnetic.
Mm.
Essentially, that's it. So we meet on a weekly basis. You have resources available. And depending on the tier you have WhatsApp access with me. So I can
Nice. Okay.
check in on you every morning and see how you're doing.
And how many people typically do you take through a program like Flight Club? How many people are in a cohort?
So it's not cohort based. You can join anytime.
Okay.
The higher tier, I only take 20 people. So that's on the lower side. And Flight Club this year, I have aspirations of 2025 to serve 100 people in Flight Club.
Nice.
So
Okay.
that's the plan. Yeah.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
millions on social media for free.
Yeah. And so, there's so many different angles I'd love to explore, but where do you see your offering kind of changing? And kind of, well, I think there's two parts. Like, what do you see as the biggest challenge that creatives are going to face over the next couple of years? And then as part of that, how do you see potentially your offering having to change?
That's a tough question.
You could start with the first one. So what do you think some of the challenges are that creatives are going to face over the next couple of years?
I think AI is the challenge that's current, and I don't think it's going away. So if they don't adapt to it, I don't think people know how to actually embrace it. And now you're in the AI space, so
Yeah.
maybe this is an interesting conversation for
Yeah.
you to actually share with me. But I feel
Yeah.
like they're still too afraid of embracing it,
Yeah.
and they're going to be left behind if they don't.
Absolutely.
And it's the same for me. I need to embrace it more so than I am right now. I think that's the challenge, and
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah, I think just to pick up on that, we've had a few kind of capability building or corporate kind of training this week. We obviously have students, very fortunate actually that we're in a space where we have students who are kind of around us all the time, who some of them are just constantly exploring this stuff. I think the need, it's such a basic kind of set of words, but curiosity and experimentation is absolutely critical at the moment. And yesterday we were chatting as part of kind of some design leadership training that we were giving to a big software development company. And I said, personally, with these tools, there are so many tools. They're kind of growing so quickly. I personally find it very useful to have side projects, small side projects that I can apply the learnings, or I can use these tools to help me build out. So, for example, I've always wanted to build something where we could showcase our alumni and their and their profiles and portfolios to companies more and more so. Right now, we do it very manually. So I was like, okay, well, I want to build a platform for this, not LinkedIn, but something that's just for Experience House students. So I'm building the whole thing through AI now with a platform called Lovable, and I'm just using prompt engineering. Now you need to know flow, you need to know kind of the process you want, you need to know kind of what kind of technically, not super technically, but you need to know that you're going to need a database and what your fields and everything you're going to want to use. But I'm absolutely loving it. Like every day I spend 15 minutes just putting in some more prompts, and the platform is like building itself. And that's just one example of a tool that if I wanted to build that without having that knowledge or access to that platform, I have to go out and write up a very complicated document, go and probably outsource the development to somebody, have someone manage it. I'm probably not going to get what I want, just like you mentioned with the content. And then you just think, oh, do I have the time to do that? But because I've created it into a side project, it gives me the ability to kind of experiment and have fun with it. And it's quite therapeutic. It's like playing with Lego in a way, right? So I think I absolutely agree. I think everyone now, and I don't think it's just in the creatives, I think it's everyone really needs to kind of start being a bit more curious and experiment. Obviously, there are many people are. Otherwise, this gap over the next couple of years is just going to open up. And the ability for you to automate, use AI agents. We do a whole thing. I have an AI agent now that takes our podcasts and creates like the full transcript, rechanges the opening blurb, puts it on our site. It's that would have taken me half a day, or someone had taken half a day a while ago. So the efficiencies and the productivity that you can unlock through this, but you're only going to know that if you are curious and you go out there and experiment. So I think it's a fascinating kind of area to be in.
I have a question for you. There's so many people that I speak to who they're not averse to AI. They just don't even know where to begin. What would you say to those people?
I think, see, that's a tough question. Like the starting point, right? You're right. I think, well, now what you're starting to see is like even Gemini, for example, is being so much more closely baked into like Google Suite. I think just, again, use it. Think about like a very simple problem that you're facing in your day-to-day work. It could be generating a blog. It could be just writing a piece of content, or writing an email or whatever. And then start to see how you can either use, even if it's ChatGPT or Claude or anything like that, where you can start to just don't try and over engineer it. Just go in and just start using the tool and having the conversation with the tool and see what kind of outputs are coming out of it. And I think once you start seeing kind of what the power of what's coming back out of it, you will start to see how it can actually start to help you. I don't think you need to like massively go and do like days and days of prompt engineering courses or anything like that. The other thing is there's so much useful content out there on LinkedIn and YouTube on this stuff. There's so many people sharing tips and tricks on it. And it's about, to me, again, where to start is find a little project, find a little problem you're facing at home and say, how can I go and solve this with AI or a tool, with one of the tools? And I think that's where all of this, it's still design. You just need to have a problem to work on. And ever since I started building this platform, I've thought of 3 other things I want to build. Some of them are work related, some of them are not. But I'm like, well, now I have something to apply this to. And then it starts to become weird. Like you said, you're up at night and you're on your WhatsApp and you're messaging. I find it so hard to switch off now.
Yeah.
But I think that's that'll probably taper off. Some of the platforms we're using or are out there right now, some of them will stop. Some of them will just continue to grow and there'll be more partnerships and integrations. But it's amazing kind of the opportunities it's going to provide to people. I don't want to talk about disruption and jobs and all that kind of stuff, but it is coming. It is going to
It's
start
coming.
right? And so if you're not aware of it, and I think the starting point again is just start very small. Just use the chat GPTs, the Claudes and stuff, and start interacting with them. And we've been doing a lot of like intro level type of things just to show people the power of it, and it kind of, you can see people like, wow, this is actually pretty cool.
Yeah. One of the things that I think about sometimes is with the advent of AI, or like I don't even know what word, like the onslaught of AI. I just like with any new tech that comes in, there's going to be this need for human connection. I don't think
Hmm.
that's going away. People are
No.
so afraid of getting replaced. I'm like, yes, there are processes that are going to be replaced, but the human isn't going to be replaced because we will still
Yep.
crave and want connection. We know that because even in this digital era, we're still connecting with people. You know,
Hmm.
the kids are doing it through games. There's still connection happening. Humans aren't going to be replaced. They're going to be needed. And I think in sales, if I go back to sales and the future of sales, I think the trust aspect is probably going to be really important with the human to human connection. So if you're doing sales, AI can take over on that and is really incredible at it. But there will come a point where they're like, I don't want to speak to an AI. I just want to know who
Yep.
I'll be dealing with. And that human to human connection is going to be really bad at that point.
Yeah. Yeah,
You worry
absolutely. And I
that.
think again for your just for your even for your own coaching that they're going to want to hear from you. They're going to want to hear from your experience, your lessons learned from other creatives that you've been working with, or success stories, etc. But that whole learning and training experience, you can use AI to just augment that, or between sessions, what you
Yes.
can give them
Yeah.
as well. So I'm fascinated now about pre-recorded content because
Mhm.
I don't need a production studio anymore to create all of this. And I think we can create a really, really nice kind of platform to supplement what we're doing here at Experience House. Um, so again, it's not going to replace the human kind of offer that I think we're busier than ever with that ask.
Yeah.
But what it can do is augment or kind of lift that experience as they're kind of between sessions, etc. So yeah, it's just, and again, I just love just experimenting and trying, and I if I see a platform. So with this just very quickly, the platform I'm using to build this platform out, it's called Lovable, but I tried a few other ones too. So I kind of figured out which of these platforms do I feel more comfortable with, which one is actually producing what I needed to produce, and then I can kind of go forward. And maybe I'll go back to those afterwards. But I think again, having something to apply it to, and I think every creative is going to have that, and whether it be sales or kind of creating decks or whatever it is, you just have to kind of to jump on board
Yeah.
as well. So I know we got a couple minutes left. I know you've got a busy day ahead, and you've got other podcasts and other things to jump on. I would love to know, where do you go from here? So we're talking about obviously AI. So where does the kind of the Ivy offer go over the next couple of years?
You know what? I don't have a plan for the 5 years. I'm going to be responsive. I'm really quick as it is,
Yeah.
and whatever I predict now, it's not going to be relevant.
Right.
So it's about I know where I'm going in my financial plan, in how many people I want to help, all of that. But the how, I'm a responsive person. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever the world throws at me, I'll adapt.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
Do you think that the creatives you're working with have the same kind of mindset, or is that something you help them with?
I I don't enforce my mindset on anyone.
Hmm.
In my space, you get to be yourself. The question I ask people all the time is, what do you want?
Mm.
What do you want? It's not what I want for my business. I've done this mistake really early in my coaching career. I'm like, no, but you can do this and you can do that. I'm like, no, that's what I want for someone else. That's not
Right.
them. So I need to know what is it that you want, and I can guide you towards that.
Got it.
And I'm there to challenge as well. I'm like, are you sure that's what you want?
Mm.
Is there more? Because if I hear things that they're not seeing themselves, so I don't enforce my mindset on anyone.
Yeah.
If they're open to expansion, and like if I can see that it can be expanded, it's up to them to make that choice to expand it. But I will place the opportunities there for them to expand it.
Nice. I really like that. I'm actually having coffee today with someone who's become like a bit of a informal advisor we chat with like every 6 months or a year. So I'm going to start with this is what I want to do. And I think that's going to
Nice.
change the approach of the conversation. And then he kind of does the same with his business, and we kind of chat through
Yes.
as well. So Ivy, thank you so much for joining. I've been following. We've been in touch, and I continue to kind of follow and support what you're building as well. I think there's been some really, really valuable kind of points, especially halfway through when you talked about some of the challenges creatives are facing. Just to close off, where can people find out more about about you? How can they connect with you, etc.?
Connect with me on LinkedIn, Ivy Malik, or Instagram, Ivy Malik Official. I usually use my name, so you'll find me fairly easily. And just get into my DMs, ask me questions, and we can chat. I'm
Nice.
very open. People think I'm unapproachable. I'm like, I'll chat to anyone.
Yeah.
So just come and say hi and
Cool.
say hello. And thank you, Amit, for having me. It's always
No
such a
problem.
we can talk forever, you and I.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
it's good that we,
yeah.
what's it called? I don't know.
Bring this episode to a close, but there will be
Yes,
another episode, and we'll continue it
yes.
in the near future. And of course, you've run a couple of workshops here at Experience House, so we'll
It's just
chat
been
about
great. Thank you.
bring you back for something in the near future as well.
Fantastic.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much, Ivy, and have a great rest of the day.
Same. Bye.